this is Tony.
This is Paul coming at you from the Friends for Life podcast.
And we're go.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Friends for Life podcast. Thanks for tuning back in here on YouTube. Today, we are on the road, and I have a special guest here, Sarah Milliman. We're out at RVI. Tell the people what we're here for today, please.
So we are here to celebrate the 31st anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It was signed 31 years ago today, July 26th. And we are also celebrating and kind of shamelessly promoting our agency. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
It's great.
So you got a lot of big things planned today. You have some presentations that you're giving.
Yes, so we have this really great presentation about how we have been successful. Actually, a person we support has been successful. So when people we support are successful, we're successful. So we're sharing her story and just kind of some information about RVI and how we stepped up during the pandemic and now during the staffing crisis. And then we have Senator Gavarone is here today and Director Davis from DODD. So some county commissioners. We got everyone here, the big wigs.
All right, so well, enough of that. Let's get out there and start checking it out.
Let's do it. But I just was thinking, about the ADA and the wonderful thing it was and how the wonderful movement and advocacy of people with disabilities really brought that to pass, and that the power that people have in doing these large things, right? And so I was really excited in January. And I thought, you know what, we're gonna have an ADA celebration. I'm gonna invite all these people and we're gonna celebrate all the amazing, wonderful things that RVI has done the first half of the year. Well, wouldn't you know it, I might have been a little optimistic because we might be in a little bit of a staffing crisis, and that's okay, that happens, right? But I really had this idea because I may be prone to dramatics at times. My spouse is not gonna say anything. That, we could just show all these successes and all these wonderful things. And I started thinking about the moments, right, that made up the movement towards the ADA, towards these big things. And my friend Chris actually reminded me the other day that it's the little moments that we're here for, those meaningful, purposeful moments that have the power to enact change and to bring about good things. So while I don't have some monumentous, amazing thing that I'm celebrating, I am celebrating the fact that we're here. We have made it through a global pandemic and the first half of a really odd year. And our staff and the people we support, because we wouldn't be here without that.
Well, Pete, welcome. We're out here at RVI's Open House celebration event kind of deal, and we're having a good time. So thanks for joining us on our
My
podcast.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Before we get into the stuff, why don't you introduce yourself and let people know a little about you and opera and where we'll go from there.
Yeah, Pete Moore. I'm President and CEO of the Ohio Provider Resource Association, otherwise known as Opera. We do get calls every once in a while looking for Oprah, but we have to turn those away.
Haven't found her yet, huh?
Haven't found her yet. My first day, I literally got a call looking for Oprah. But we represent the entire spectrum of developmental disability providers across the state of Ohio. Been around 40 plus years as a trade association. We have about over 180 members, and we do our best just to support the members we have the best we can. We do something called Opera Air, or how we organize ourselves, and it's Advocacy, Information, and Resources, AIR. And that best describes probably most trade associations, but very well describes ours.
Awesome. How would an organization begin to even contact Opera, and how does that work?
Well, you can go to opera.org to find all our contact information. A lot of it's through word of mouth. I know that you've talked with Sarah at RVI about the possibility of becoming a member. We take a lot of pride. What we talk about all the time is building a community of providers.
There you go.
And what we're trying to do is have a common vision, common values, focus on quality. We want to be the trade association for quality. So we do everything we can to promote that idea.
Awesome.
And that's how we feel we're going to bring people into the mix.
Well, how did you get started, working your way up into getting to the position where you're at today? Because, that's you're high up there,
Well, you know what? If I went through my resume, it'd look like I can't hold down a job.
I know that feeling.
It's a long resume. Yeah. But I've been very blessed in this field. I started working with elementary school kids with disabilities, learning disabilities, developmental disabilities in Tiffin, Ohio, where I'm from, way back in 1991, and just worked my way through. I worked at Tiffin Developmental Center. I worked for the Hancock County Board of DD.
Oh, nice. I
worked for the state of Ohio. I've done it all. And,
Yeah.
I'm really, truly blessed to be with Opera. I see Opera as the pretty much the pinnacle of where you can be in developmental disability services in Ohio. Always had a provider focus in my career, and just, worked my way through it, learned a lot, mostly through trial and error, mostly error, and, just trying to serve people the best we can. And one of the things I focused on for many years was how can I help those who work with people with developmental disabilities be their best.
Yeah.
Been a creator of a couple projects that was the main focus, is supporting people, professionals to support people with developmental disabilities. My philosophy for years has been happy professionals equal happy people being supported. And how do we make that happen? Because as you guys know, being in the field, the people you support rely very heavily on our approach, our ability to build positive relationships, and our ability to help people have a good day.
Right.
And if we can't do that, then what are we doing? So that's been, I've done a lot of training through my career and kind of developed these philosophies, working my way through that trial and error.
So what can people expect if they join Opera? I mean, what are they looking for? What are you guys offering to agencies that's gonna make their life easier?
I think the key is probably less about what. Now, I'm not going to downplay too much about what our team offers, but it's that opportunity to be a part of a community, to go into a room or into a Zoom now, and have people with common values and common problems, and it's become really important through the pandemic with the worsening of the workforce crisis, what now we categorize as an emergency.
Right.
We just we struggle with what are we here for, right? What's Opera about, to your question? And it's really about just people to listen. I think a lot of times our providers, they certainly want solutions and they want new and fresh ideas. They want us to advocate for them. But I think that the value of just having a group of people just to listen is you can't put a price on it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it goes into that community idea. How can we support each other through good and bad times? And unfortunately, now our field's really struggling.
Yeah, it's so amazing that you even say that, because I've been in the field for quite a while. Like your resume, mine is probably the same
we should start a club.
Right. Yeah. But there was a lot, especially as DSPs, they felt undervalued, and even now, it's still almost a demeaning type of work that you have to, mindset that you have to change, because a lot of people don't feel as if this is true healthcare work, and that's one of the main reasons that we fight as hard as we do, because I do think most DSPs have a healthcare mentality behind them. But have you found with a lot of agency providers that they felt as if their county boards didn't care about them, or even the state of Ohio just wanted it done their way and not exactly the way that the individual needed it to be done?
Yeah, I when I came to Opera, I had a mantra. I have a lot of mantras in my life to keep me in line, right?
Yeah, there you go.
But my main thing was trust. We have a trust issue in our field, I believe. And I've talked very, very openly with the leadership with both county boards and the state of Ohio about the problem with this trust. And it goes both ways. It's a two-way street. Right. And I think there's a trust issue, providers of county boards and of the state of Ohio, Department of Developmental Disabilities specifically, that it's really not a secret. There's also, conflict or trust issues between some residential providers and some day providers. It's just part of the deal, or it has been. But it's something we have to address very, very intentionally.
Yeah.
We have to address that trust issue.
And I've seen it kind of change. There's like a lot of different coalitions and stuff that are coming together in groups. Even us at Friends for Life, we collab with a lot of other agencies, and we're trying to continue that conversation with collaboration versus competition. Has there been anything that you've seen that worked that probably, let's say, agency A and agency B probably don't necessarily get along? Have you had any kind of like mediation in trying to fix those things?
Yeah, I have a great story about that. We'll see if it's great. I'll leave it up to you guys. But we developed something years ago called the Good Life Network. Me and a colleague, Willie Jones, and I years ago, so we would go around and train county board staff and provider staff on helping people live a good life.
Nice.
And it goes back to that happy professionals, that happy people serve. Mm-hmm. If I'm living a good life, if I'm working with you, you will live a good life. Mm-hmm. So the story I have is there was a day provider that was struggling with this residential provider. Okay. And I don't know if you guys have experienced the notebooks at the end of the day. You're right.
Yes, the communication books.
It was usually, hey, the lunch wasn't right, or
something
negative.
It was
all negative, right? So we challenged the day provider to write something positive. Mm-hmm. Just find anything, write something positive. So they did it. And we heard this story later so when the residential staff got this notebook and there was something positive in there, they took it to their boss and said, "We think something's wrong."
Wow.
No lie. And they said, we think that they're picking on us or they're mocking us because they wrote, well, she goes, "What happened?" They wrote something positive in this book. She goes, "No, they're going through this good life training. Everything's fine." But that's the kind of world we live in, unfortunately. And I don't know, when I talk about trust, you met Director Davis earlier, mm-hmm. and Director Davis and I trust each other. Yeah. As individuals, we trust each other. Mm-hmm. It's the systems that it has evolved into this, I call it oversight versus compliance.
Yeah.
And we've kind of we haven't openly promoted it, but it's happened as a result. It's an unwanted byproduct are these clashes between. And just think about, if there is conflict between providers or between the state and the provider or the county board provider, whatever the conflict is, what we always have to remind ourselves is it's the person that is receiving the services that's impacted.
Mm-hmm.
There's a principle out there called 100-0. It's on YouTube. It's a very short, 2-minute, 38-second video or so. It's called 100-0 principle. So that means you give 100%, expect nothing in return. We have to start living this principle. Mm-hmm. If we're going to change it doesn't necessarily have to come from the state or the governor or Medicaid or the federal government. It's us. Mm-hmm. It's us as professionals saying it doesn't have to be this way anymore. We can make a difference. We can change it. And by that notebook example I gave, that was the 100-0. I'm going to give 100% and expect nothing in return. And the goal is then that the return will even out eventually.
Yes.
That once you give that 100%, that the other party will eventually start to work their way toward. I use it in my marriage too. Don't tell my wife.
Hey, look, I'm sitting here taking notes because I'm gonna try it too.
I think that's a good principle just to live by in general because you're gonna. If you expect nothing in return, you can't get your feelings hurt, and you can't. Oh, this is woe is me. Yeah. You're like, hey, I'm giving you what I have, and if you don't like it, there's no skin off my back. I did my part. I feel good. Everybody. Yeah, I hear that principle a lot, to be honest. It's not only in disability field, just in general.
I'm a big door opener for folks at the store or whatever. Yeah. There's days where I'm open door, and I don't think, it's just what I do. I was raised to do that. Mm-hmm. There's days when someone may not say thank you, or I sometimes get a little angry. I'll say, "You're welcome," or whatever. And that's not the way we want to go, right?
Right.
And so I'm always testing myself. And then that's really, that's how we're going to turn it around.
Yeah. Well, what do they say? In order for anything to get stronger, it has to go through tension. Yeah. Yep. Tension is the only way of measuring gains later.
and what we've seen, guys, is through this pandemic, is we talked earlier about we're going to see the best of us during this pandemic.
Right.
And what we saw is when we did some rule relaxation, when we focused on just keeping people safe. The basic premise of what we're here to do through the pandemic, we saw the relationships gel. County boards and providers came together. The state did an amazing job of supporting people the best they could to their ability. And that's, a lot of times we just have to get back to basics about why we're here. And that's what the pandemic forced us to do. And we got to keep that momentum because we saw that trust.
Right.
We saw it come out. So how do we bottle that and just keep it going? Sometimes I feel like we're slipping back away.
Yeah.
How do we refocus us to that pandemic level of DD community and
of love, urgency.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yep, I agree. So, well, you're a very busy man, and we don't want to keep you all day. So, thank you for popping in on our podcast, our little mobile setup. We've been doing this more regularly. It's been a lot of fun meeting a lot of new people. Yeah. So, you kind of mentioned it at the beginning, but just why don't you let people kind of reiterate where they can learn more about opera, and if they have any questions, where to go?
Yeah, go to opera.org. We'd love to hear from you, and you can see all of our resources, and you can take a look at our staff. We have a great team of staff that are out there helping people out. So opera.org is the place to see it.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And I'm so thrilled to be here today to celebrate the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. 31 years is quite a milestone, and does such amazing work to support the inclusion of people with all abilities. And talk about the power of advocacy. I can tell you that's absolutely true. In my first year in the General Assembly, a mother wanted to have lunch, and we sat down, and she told me about her 2 sons who have autism. And they're young men now, and one of them drives a car and the other does not. But she had concerns that if her son were pulled over in a car, that the lights on the police car, the knock on the window, that he might not respond to commands or answer appropriately. She was concerned about his safety. She was concerned that his actions might be interpreted as him being under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or maybe threatening anybody. So she had always worked with her local police department to make sure any new officer there knew who her sons were, and knew that they had autism. So, but she thought, if I'm having this problem, this has got to be happening everywhere. So we teamed up, and we introduced legislation that would alert law enforcement before they even approach the car that the person in the car might have a disability, a communication disability. So labels are really important. We didn't want anything on the license plate. We didn't want a sticker in the window. We didn't want anything on the driver's license. People were really hard to get past labels. So we came up with a system where if your doctor fills out a form saying you have a communication disability, you can bring that into the BMV and you're put on the LEADS database. That's a very secure database, accessible only to law enforcement. And that way, when you pull over a car and runs a plate, that officer will have a heads up that, the interaction with someone who has a disability, and it goes on state ID for her younger son who doesn't drive, but who's a passenger in a car. So that became law, and it became law through the advocacy of a mother. So there is power.
Well, welcome to our podcast. Here we're mobile today. We're out here at the RVI celebration of the 88,
31 years.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and we're having a blast out here. It's a beautiful day. We're in an air-conditioned room, luckily.
It's a little humid outside.
Gnarly out there.
It's a lot nicer in here.
So how did you personally get involved in the DD field?
So, it's funny. Actually, my predecessor, Anna Barrett, had found my resume on Monster.com at that point in time, and called me. I've been in with Independence of Portage County for 16 years, and that's the first DD provider I've worked for. My trade is HR. I'm a 26-year HR professional, and I had just gotten my degree, and she found my resume and said, "Would you be interested in doing this position?" And I said, Sure. So I came out, went on 5 interviews. The best part was my first interview I came in, David, God rest his soul, was sitting next to me. And he looked at me and he goes, "Are you going to work with me?" And I said, "I don't know. I hope they hire me." And he goes, "I do too." And he grabbed my hand and kissed it. And I'm like, now he was a little bit of a stinker. So he was a little ornery. I found that out later.
Yeah.
But I mean, like,
Probably
who doesn't want to come to work
and everything else.
and have, like, to know that I'm doing HR, you know, the paperwork stuff, but it's having an impact on the people that we serve, and all that. It was wonderful. So I got into the field that way. I didn't know anything about it. So then from there, I 3 years ago got promoted to the COO, and
Congrats.
Thank you. And now I'm the CEO. So actually, I became the CEO a month before COVID hit.
Welcome to the big league.
So yeah, that was trial by fire, and I'm still alive. But yeah, so I got into the field that way. I had not had any idea with programming or anything like that. I was strictly
Really?
HR, and so. The staffing crisis that kind of happened 10 years ago, I was really struggling with hiring folks. And so what I did is I decided to actually go and start working shifts. And I did that as an education to teach myself.
Teach yourself,
So
yeah.
I could say, as I'm telling people, hey, you're going to do things that you and I take for granted every day, like taking meds, bathing, going to the bathroom independently, things like that, again, we take for granted. So I started working some shifts and just getting a feel. And I worked in different, because I have ICFs, I have supported living, I have day programming, non-medical transportation, and employment services. So I've actually touched every service delivery we have. And that was very enlightening. And so I was able to kind of educate myself. So it helped when I was going out and recruiting for DSPs and persons to come in this field. Because again, everybody from the top down is a DSP at heart. You have to be. You have to. That's our, the bread and butter is the individuals we serve.
Correct.
And so you have to understand that. If we don't, so I then took over as the COO, and we decided to change our whole delivery model. Lost 75% of my management team.
Whoa.
So was doing a lot of direct care, and really got an appreciation, and actually kind of gave me some street cred, because they're like, okay, she's walking the walk, and I love it. Like it fills my soul, and it's funny. My leadership team will tell me that they're like, when you work with a shift, you can see how you just get energized, and so that's to me. How could I want to go work anywhere else? I call it the DD vortex. Once you kind of get into it, it sucks you in.
Right.
I might have got punched in the chest for an hour, but he calmed down. We had a bowl of ice cream afterwards. It's great.
I think that you are hitting the nail on the head right here. There's no way that you could have told me at anybody in HR can hire anyone without knowing what it's like to be a DSP.
No.
Even for the individuals that you're hiring for, you have to see what temperaments can match up with what skill sets and so on and so forth. It's just because you have these glowing resumes of, oh, I've worked at this place, I've dealt with this kind of situation and outcome. Well, do you know how to cook SpaghettiOs the way that Tim likes his SpaghettiOs?
Tim really likes his SpaghettiOs a certain way.
And you don't know
and some
that.
people do not put milk in their cereal, I learned, especially when it got thrown at me. It was like, oh, okay, you're trying to tell me I made it wrong. Okay. Right. And so I'm sitting there going, and the DSP's laughing at me. She goes, oh, he puts water in his. I'm like,
that would have been good to know, before the throw.
But we were working. It was okay.
Yeah, learning experiences. Yeah. So we are big at Friends for Life and motivating change through education.
Okay.
I think it's very important that DSPs are educated into knowing that, for one, what they do is important, but it can also lead to another area in their lives,
Well, I do think you need to empower the DSPs. They have to be a part of it. They're the ones doing the work every day. I don't know Johnny as well as they do.
Right.
And so I need to know that. So, again, educating them on what to say, empowering them to speak up.
Yes. Have you noticed anything that you have done or your organization that has kind of taken hold and is working and helping in that fight?
Most of the leadership team has come up through the ranks. They've all been DSPs.
Okay.
They've started out in the front. So they get street cred, I call it, for that. You know, I'm really hard at like coming up with one thing that we've done it's, you know, we're really big on training and educating. You'll hear me say often, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah,
if you give garbage, you're going to get garbage. And unfortunately, I think even with the staffing crisis right now, we're seeing that because my management team is tired and weary. They're working I'm working a ton of hours. I mean, and so something has to give. But I think trying to still be, I'll give it, remembering the joys of the job. That is something we have implemented over the pandemic. Why did you get into this field? Because of your cousin Larry? Uncle Larry. You know, you got into this because there was something inside you. Remembering that. It doesn't come down to, oh, I've got to work another shift and clean. I've got to make Cheerios. I've got to do this. It's, why do I do it? And so we ask that question a lot. Why are you here? Because if you can't remember why you're here and you're not passionate about it, then you're in the wrong field. Ooh. And I mean, seriously.
Right, yeah, that's true.
And not that I want to lose good people, but if you're not, if this field isn't for everybody, and it burns people out, and knowing when that is, because that person's going to be a detriment.
Yeah.
Because it is a stressful job. It is, you know, a demanding job, but it's also probably one of the most rewarding, the most exciting. You know, I could go work in a hospital and do HR or run it and it'd be fine. But here's where I actually get to make an impact on somebody's life.
Right.
And so remembering the joys of the job. And that came from one of my leadership people. They came with that. And we use that tagline on everything. Remembering the joys of the job.
Beautiful. I know I'm able to remember the joys. It's like, I think I even sat with my kids the other day, and to see them interact with one of the individuals that we serve, I was just like, wow, this is just awesome.
Well,
you know?
I'll share a story. So I had a family member who, actually, it's my husband. My husband, I'm going to go home out. He would say, you can go somewhere else making more money. You can go somewhere else making more money. You're really good at your job, HR, da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, but I love what I do. I really like the work I'm doing. You know, I work for a nonprofit. Played Santa Claus. He came in and played Santa Claus because we lost our Santa Claus that year. Came back, looked at me and said, I will never question that again. He goes, the interaction, the feeling that I have is priceless. I understand now why you do what you do.
Right.
And I think, you know, just reminding people that, and that's not for everybody. That's not for everybody, so.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's funny because this podcast, every time we talk about something, it just like relates back to things we've touched on up in the past and things I see all the time. And I saw a quote, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, and it basically said, you know, it gave you two drastic options, like marriage is hard, divorce is hard, pick your hard. You know,
right.
Work is hard, being jobless is hard, pick your hard. And I think that goes a long way with this field specifically because, yeah, working in this field can be hard, but, you know, working at McDonald's can be hard too, or working in a hospital can be hard, or I used to work in construction and finance and all these different jobs. This is the only job I've had where I don't wake up every day and go, I really do not want to go in today.
Yeah.
Like, I wake up and I'm like, let's do this. Let's do our thing.
It doesn't feel like a job someday. I mean, there's obviously parts of the job that get tedious
and stuff.
But it you're right. If you get up every day and you're excited about going to work, what a great. It's not a job.
Yeah, right.
It's not a job.
It's living.
Well, and I do tell people that when you come into the DD world, it is a lifestyle because these folks need us and depend on us, and so you can't just stop. You know, like especially as an agency, you know, you've got 24-hour care that you've got to provide. Somebody's got to be there. You know, so it can be a little bit of a lifestyle, especially when you come in as a management, because you're in charge of maybe 4 people for 24/7, and the staffing and their medical and their household needs. So so making sure you find the balance, because that can be really tricky. It can be really tricky.
Our jobs, I believe, only show how much we're needed is in emergency situations. You know, and it's one of those things that you can't tell somebody who's used to working in like a factory, they're off as soon as the whistle blows, to get a call at 10 minutes. Well, I'm already walking out the door. They better fix that machine, they said. But in this world, I mean, we can. stop working with somebody at 10 p.m., walk outside, and something happened that you have to turn, no matter if they have alone time or remote supports or
Somebody's
whatever.
Somebody's got to go back in.
Yeah, somebody has to go back. Mm-hmm. Do you think, and I really hate just putting this on younger generations, but do you feel as if the younger generation is grasping that in the Instagram life that a lot of them are living?
I know, it's so funny. I feel so old sometimes saying the younger generation.
That's how I feel
I think some do, some don't. I think it's hard. The work ethic is a little different as far as that goes. And I don't know necessarily why that is. Yeah. But everything's been instantaneous to them. And I think also, the baby boomers are gone. And, my generation, we saw the work that they put in. Mm-hmm. And while we maybe didn't work as much, we still put in a good day, honest work. I think... And it's hard for me because I have a 27 and a 25-year-old, and they work their tails off.
Right.
And like my son works in this field. He's, an education major. Is a paraprofessional for a local school district. I mean, he does amazing work and works a lot, and puts in a good, honest day's work. That's good. I think there are some folks who don't. But then I'm going to go back to teachable moments. So when you sometimes people don't know. I have had employees come in, younger employees, and they've just not been exposed to that. So explaining to them, this is why it's important you show up. This is why we do this. I know you don't want to fill out that paperwork, that progress note, but here's why it's important. Mm-hmm. And then explaining it to them, we get paid for services based off this. If something were to happen, we can go back and look. Then they kind of get it a little bit more. Otherwise, they just think, the boss is just making me write up a bunch of paperwork. Yeah. So I have found in working with the younger generation that if we really explain why, and then also listening to them on why they might have a good idea on why, you're adding me 3 different places. Maybe I only need to do it one, and here's why. Right. So that is, I don't know if I answered your question, quite frankly. I just went down a rabbit hole.
You are. Hey, we're going down rabbit holes all the time. We're like, what was that, Mary in Wonderland?
Alice in Wonderland.
Who the hell is Mary? I don't know. Well, in the same breath of that same question, have you noticed any things with the older generations, especially when it comes to technology?
So yes, so my HR background in recruiting, I love to recruit. That's like and I'm struggling, right? Obviously, everybody is. I mean, I don't love it right now. Really don't love it right now because I don't know how to fix it. I mean, and I'm a fixer. So, but when I was really big in looking at the WIOA programs, the youth programs, mentoring programs through Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and then also mature services. Okay. And so getting that 55 and older generation to come work, because again, we have some positions where it might be 15 hours a week to go grocery shopping and do this. They're making a little bit of money. Or I have on-site on-call positions, and it's perfect, especially for them, for their medications and that they need full-time benefits. So going back to that, we implemented a brand new computer system. Mm-hmm. Funny story. My girl Sherry, I love her dearly. She's been with us for almost 20 years. We brought her in and we did a one-on-one training on this new system on how to enter your time, because we're trying to do everything electronic.
Yeah.
And we had it big on the screen, and it said, "Put mouse here." She picked up the mouse and tried to put it. Now, we laughed, and she's like, "What?" And so we talk about that all the time. And so I was like, so it was just a matter of going, no, Sherry, here. And so we showed her how to do it, and she still chuckles about it. And she's like, I had a blonde moment. And I'm like, so I think meeting them where they're at is really important. And again, I'm going to circle back to, isn't that what we do on a daily basis with the people we serve, is we meet them where they're at? It's the same thing. I joke all the time, and I have a behavior plan for every one of my employees. Yeah. It's like I got to talk to him, and he gets really touchy when I am anything critical or constructive. So I'm going to go in and sandwich that with some positive, then throw that in there, and then bring another positive in. I'm just like, what the hell were you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody works in their own plane, so I can definitely and before we wrap up here in a minute, the thing on the younger generation, I think definitely, because I'm sandwiched in the middle. I'm like 30 something. Yeah. Okay. What am I, 32? I don't remember. I'm getting starting to not pay attention to that anymore. And it's like I do see like you said, some people that are younger than me, my brother, he works his butt off. Him and I are both pretty hard workers, I would say. And, I think that generational gap, younger people nowadays are more willing to say, why are we doing this? Whereas someone of my dad's generation, it was shut up and do your job and just work and you show up from 9 to 5 and that's it. Whereas a lot of people that are younger are asking, like you said, well, why are we doing this? And I think that's very important to a younger generation, because it's just they grew up where it was okay to question people in school. And if I questioned my teacher in school, it was do not ask the teacher why. Just shut up and do your homework. But I went to those Catholic schools too, where they really
you had
get
the ruler.
you. Same
here. Let me see your knuckles. Are they okay?
I don't want to talk about it.
He's got trauma from it.
A lot of trauma.
We don't want to go there. But, before we wrap up here, why don't you let people know where they can learn more about your organization and all of that fun stuff?
So if you go to, I don't know our website. If you go to Independence of Portage County on Facebook, that's where you'll get the most information.
There you go.
And see all the wonderful things my people are doing. We also just developed a TikTok account.
Ooh,
so IOPCI 1975. That is when we came to fruition.
Okay.
So go there. We just started it, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Do that right now.
Thank you.
Are you on there doing any TikTok dances or anything?
We did a Superman dance with some of our individuals. We had one of the joys of the job lady, Julie Wells. I'll put a shout out to her because she is my hype woman. She's been out there doing that. She did filmed a TikTok this morning and we uploaded it. And so she's really kind of been taking that over. And we're hoping, people will go and look at it and people will see the joys of being a DSP, the joys of working in this field, because there's a lot of good.
There surely is.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, Cliff, welcome to the Friends for Life podcast mobile version. We are out here at RVI, and you've made some pretty awesome videos today, and we've been talking about nerdy audio gear. Finally, I have someone I can relate to on the podcast.
I'm sitting here confused about it. I'm like, it's a microphone. That's all I know. You talk into it.
He paid for him, so it's cool. So, how did you? I know your wife runs the gig here, but how else did you get involved with kind of becoming the media guy here at RVI?
Well, I've been doing audio recording for like the past 10 years. I studied at Owens, music technology, audio engineering and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then just over the past few years, just doing stuff with music and just for various like family and friends, I've done some video projects, mostly like slideshows and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I got to know how to use like the iMovie interface and all that and edit videos together. So when Sarah was looking for a media person here, I was starting to get enough experience where I could do some of that social media and audio and video work, since I'd been doing a lot for my own personal stuff for my music and had a little bit of experience with it. So I was happy to come and do some of this stuff for the company, because I also have worked for this company before as well, just serving the people here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have done this work before, and I've done also creative like audio and video work. So
you're like doing everything on all sides. You're working here. You're doing audio stuff. You worked here in the past. How is your opinion of the disability field changed over the years? Because this is all pretty new to me. I know I didn't have any experience in the disability field, and now it's kind of something we talk about every day. So is it something that's...
I'd just say that I've learned a lot more about it. I mean, I talk to Sarah every day, and I just learn more about it. And I think, for the most part, I think people get a little afraid of or intimidated by people with disabilities because they don't have the same social, don't always have the same social interactions or what would be considered appropriate social behavior. And I've gotten so much more comfortable with that. And now I have a daughter with disabilities as well. So it's it's much easier for me to talk and communicate and be just present and patient and helpful to the people that they serve here. And so, yeah, I would say the biggest thing is I just have learned a lot more about it, and that I've just learned how to communicate better and be more comfortable with people, because I feel like people are so often uncomfortable with it just because they've not had experiences with people with disabilities, because for so long they were segregated, and that's a lot of the stuff that I've learned about from Sarah, is like how much they were segregated and how much has happened in the past 30 years since the ADA. And yeah, it's pretty fascinating and incredible work that she does here, and that people in this community do.
Now there's this fine line between being like a DSP and care worker, and then being a parent. Now, as a DSP care worker or anything to that nature, it is you're caring for someone, but at the end of the day, you still know that you can go home, and you have to, kind of mimic your life in the sense of, now you're at home. What is your day like after being a DSP or a care provider to somebody? Now you go home and you have to care for your daughter who has a developmental difference. Like, is that overwhelming to you? Or, I mean, is your day kind of being, your early day, does that help you at the end of the day as well?
I mean, I think certainly having experience in this field can help you in a lot of ways, being in preparing you for certain things. But in other ways, it's always, every person is different, so it's always going to be a different experience. I will say that, it can get exhausting. There's a lot of needs our daughter has that, like, sometimes at night we have to do, these different medications or treatments or things, and just like, I just want to go to bed. Sleep. And it's like, oh, I gotta still do this thing and that thing and this thing, and before I get her into bed. So there's that. But you also, like, after doing some of this stuff for so many years, sometimes you just get on autopilot, and it's not too bad after you've been doing it for a while. But there's definitely things that I will say that I think the more stressful thing is doctor's appointments. You don't have to go to doctor's appointments with people here often when you're working. When I go to doctor's appointments with my daughter, it's stressful, because not only are you running back their entire medical history a lot of times, but like, you're sometimes having to absorb a lot of information and
in a short amount of time,
and make tough decisions about treating certain things. And so, that can be a little stressful, because then you're actually having to make important decisions and weigh all this information and absorb that, and then trying to communicate it to your spouse, your family, and make those decisions together. That can be a really tough thing.
So, and we have a show that we run with a doctor who specifically works with people with disabilities, and he's got really good information out there about, how the medical field kind of needs to adapt a little bit, because a lot of the times with people with disabilities, they're continually just pumping medication, and instead of trying to find, root causes. Do you feel like, as a parent, that rings true? Do you feel like, a lot of the times they may just be uneducated and you're kind of running blind, like, I don't think this is right? Or
it has gone both ways. We've had doctors that have been really great, and nurses like that have really great bedside manner and are able to communicate very clearly. But then there have been doctors that we're just like, why would you say that? Like, and just or just have to, we've had a little bit of debate with certain medical professionals about how we want to go about treating things we want to try first, you know. But I definitely think there's room for improvement when it comes to bedside manner. I think doctors tend to be like very data driven, and they're so knowledgeable about so many things, but sometimes they forget they're talking to human beings.
Yes, absolutely.
And it can be tough because they're speaking it from a very data driven perspective, which I can understand, and that's important too. But yeah, there's definitely need for giving that information to people in a way that first they understand and also can emotionally handle, because sometimes it's like enough to like send you running out of the room when they are talking to you about some of this stuff. Like you just want to like start crying right there when you're like, and it can be hard. So yeah, there's definitely room for improvement when it comes to doctors and how they communicate with their patients.
So now that you're doing some of the media work, you know, I can relate to that. I do a little bit of media work
sometimes
myself. So what kind of things do you guys have in store that you're kind of working towards or have ideas on if you're here at RVI? Because like I know with Tony and me, it's a continual, like it's like a train locomotive fully loaded down, moving fast at 100 miles an hour.
Well, I just started doing it not too long ago, so I've had a couple of video projects that I was doing for the ADA anniversary specifically. But I'm going to be doing more photography and managing like social media. We're trying to get Instagram and Facebook a lot more content up on a consistent basis because they haven't had anybody to do that. So Sarah was just doing a lot of that herself or having other people. But I've been doing social media for my music and other personal projects for a long time. So it's like I can manage that, and so we are trying to get some stuff up and running. I've done a little bit, but we got a little more to do. But, and there's website stuff too, where I'll be managing the website as soon as I figure out all that. How to do it. Yeah,
the website stuff is a pain.
Yeah, I haven't really managed a website, but I've managed a lot of social media stuff. So I'll be figuring it out and hopefully doing more videos. I'm not sure what they've got coming up, but she said she has other projects for me, and then I'm doing my own projects too. So
okay, to music though, you know we're huge fans. Paul is in a band. I can sing very well. No, I can't. Anything with music completely skip by except the ear. I can hear good music. But what type of music do you do?
I play like acoustic. I do a lot of like folk, rock, pop. I play a lot of cover gigs where I'm out playing 3-hour sets of music at bars and clubs and stuff. But I also play original music and write and record and do that kind of thing.
Perfect. So, I'm sure that helps even with the job because like sometimes Paul just starts jamming, and if we have somebody there, they're like, "Oh, wow, cool."
Yeah, you know. Well, even doing some of these videos, it's like I've done a lot of audio editing. I hadn't done a lot of video editing, but you know the programs work in similar ways and the software. So I have a little basic knowledge, and as soon as I got in there, you know, you just start learning stuff right away, and it's just trial by fire.
There you go.
That is exactly right. I started the same way. I started with audio, and then I realized everything is video now, and I was like, well, I bought a camera, and here I am. I don't know what the heck happened. It was like a whirlpool. It's like I bought a camera, and all of a sudden I do this like 10 hours a day, it feels like. I'm just sitting here podcasting and stuff. So, no, it's great. I personally, and Tony, obviously, very personally, thinks that the media part of the DD field is super underutilized right now because, a camera is a little expensive. But these microphones set up in our mobile podcast unit, whatever you want to call it, it can be a little expensive. But the internet is where everyone's getting their information now. So I think to get that visibility that we all kind of are continually whining about, ourselves included, we have to do these things, and they might not be. We're kind of all starting from a blank slate. Like, I don't I don't know the field super well, like as much as Tony, so we're always talking about how to make this content, because you go online and you look up like content for the DD field and it's like non-existent, or it's just like these little happy-go-lucky kind of things, and like nobody's talking about the harder issues, and we're trying to really work towards, putting a presence out there and making a voice for everyone. So
for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like social media is super underutilized in this field. Hard.
Yeah. And just real quick, you got to really word it. You can't say like hard things and then DD and then, because you look up those kind of scenarios, you're going to get some weird
I don't
Google
want to know. Tony's mind went there, not mine. Yeah. I had nothing to do with that.
That's the algorithm, people. No, but I think that having more companies and agencies do this is very important.
Yeah, it gets more information and more awareness, and you get less of the stereotypical questions or comments from people that I'm sure Sarah has told you plenty of.
Well, it allows you to control. I mean, I don't want to. It sounds like bad when you say control the narrative, but we're putting out the information that we feel needs to be talked about, and not just fluff pieces about,
right.
Oh, this is so cute. A person with disability did a thing. We're like, there's other stuff going on here, people. We're over that.
And guess what? They did an even bigger thing last week. So where's that?
Yeah.
So, well, thanks for popping in here, and I know you guys are running around busy today, and you got a lot of stuff to do. So, thanks for popping in, and hopefully we can get together and collaborate on some content stuff, because we're not that far away from them.
Yeah, and so podcasting is something I've also been interested in doing. I know my brother has been doing one, and so I've been wanting to do some of that myself, and since I have there's plenty of audio experience and equipment to mess around with.
Get in there. I'm telling you, people listen to the weirdest things, like us.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
I have a couple of friends that we like bourbon, and we're like, we should all sit around drinking bourbon and talk about bourbon and record it. And I'm like, will anybody actually want to listen to that? I'm like, maybe if we get drunk enough.
Yeah. Once you start slurring enough words, they're like, oh yeah, let's tune in to this. Well, thanks, Cliff, man. Anytime you need any help, we're here for you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of the Friends for Life podcast. If you can, go down below, hit that subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate it. Also, if you could, head over to iTunes and leave us a rating or review. That would be super helpful to us. It actually helps grow the podcast and get more listeners on the issues in the DD field. So thank you guys for that. And we want to thank Sarah for letting us head over to RVI and just invade your space, your personal space, and get up all in personal with your workers, your guests, your friends, family, everything. So thank you so much. Head over to RVI's website and check that out. I'll put a link down below here. And, thank you all for listening and watching the podcast and all your support. And we'll see you next week.